There appears to be a changing of the guard when it comes to the best player in the AFL. We know that Dustin Martin has been that player for the last 5 or so years. Is the crown up for grabs now?
Now, as weird as this sounds, feel it was even prior to Dustin Martin's 2021. And I know that may sound a bit controversial, but you also have to factor in my my admiration for Marcus Bontempelli. But even without my opinions on that, now, I think it is certainly up for grabs now as we leave 2021 behind us, going to 2022. And as we saw in the final series, as we saw in the final 45 minutes of the biggest game of the year, it may not just be Marcus Bontempelli that's in that conversation, and it may not just be one player from Melbourne Footy Club, it may be two who are also part of that conversation. I'm obviously referring to the two gun midfielders in Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver. And yes, the body of work of those two, particularly Oliver, is not as lengthy already as clearly Martin's is and Bontempelli's has been since his effectively second season of footy way back in 2015. But yeah, in terms of the way we as media and I think just general football lovers view the game, I feel it is up for grabs. Do you see it that way as well?
Yeah, and I think you can honestly even throw Max Gawn in there as well. I know he's a different player, so it's kind of hard to compare at times, but he certainly has been quite incredible. I mean, we saw what he did in that preliminary final against Geelong with that outstanding game, kicking all those goals, the way he works in the ruck. I mean, his name's got to be in the conversation. And that's why Melbourne obviously are the premiers, because they've got so many elite players at that level.
If you want to throw Gawn in, I mean, yes. I mean, and on an All-Australian basis, where since 2017-16, he's only missed the 1 year as an All-Australian from that time onwards. That was the 17 season when he was injured for half the year with a hamstring torn off the bone. So, but it's more the impact, isn't it, Nat? And this is why the Dustin Martin legend is as great as it is. He's only won, as we speak, 2 best and fairest. I thought he was unlucky not to win it last year. Jaden Short got it last year. So his best and fairest years were the year before the Brownlow in 2016 and then the Brownlow year of 2017. He also was best and fairest. So it's impact in the massive games, which has allowed him to be that player for effectively that duration, that 2016 right through till the time of injury this year. I thought he was putting together a pretty solid year, Nat, for what it's worth. It wasn't his best year, but in terms of what his other teammates were doing, he was carrying them to a point, and then he just copped that massive hit, didn't he, where he wasn't even able even to almost get off the ground comfortably, and we haven't seen him again on a footy field. And I just hope he's going to be able to do a proper pre-season to have him back in this conversation next year potentially. But while he was away, Oliver and particularly Petrarca, who had already finished in a Brownlow medal placing in 2020, and then he just took his own legend within that Melbourne Footy Club to new heights in the very last game of the year, as did Oliver, it must be said as well. So yeah, it's an interesting situation as we come out of 2020 as to who's going to take the crown.
And I think, you add to that conversation the way that Dustin Martin has obviously performed on the biggest stage in grand finals, and Christian Petrarca being able to emulate that as well as a Norm Smith medalist. And look, Marcus Bontempelli had a terrific second term, and that started the third quarter as well for the Bulldogs, and he nearly probably won the Norm Smith medal himself had the Bulldogs gone on to win that game. So both of them perform on the big stage, which adds to that aura, doesn't it? And aligns them up there with Dustin Martin. It's Christian Petrarca for mine, and I know you're probably still leaning towards Marcus Bontempelli.
I am.
Slightly. Just slightly. The bromance continues.
I am, but look, when we term and dub these people the player of the comp or the player of the era or the player of a period, there's an explosive element to their play, isn't there, Nat? Which is probably why you take out Max Gawn from that conversation to line up with what we're talking about here. Because before Martin, it was a dead heat, wasn't it? In some people's eyes, between Dangerfield and Fyfe, wasn't it? I mean, but they won Brownlow medals. Fyfe a couple of Brownlow medals, Dangerfield a Brownlow medal, and no one's polled like Dangerfield apart from Gary Ablett, who was the man before Fife and Dangerfield took over. And again, there's an explosive element to the way they play the midfield. Prior to that, I don't think there was too much dispute that it was Buddy Franklin for a period of time, certainly since the 2007 elimination final when he kicked that 7 against Adelaide, and then went and had 200 plus shots at goal in 2008 and led the Hawks to a faster than expected premiership year in 2008. He had that title for many years after that. And then prior to that, you're looking at Judd, aren't you, who burst onto the scene as a 20-year-old at West Coast, won a Brownlow at 21. And then you go back to Nathan Buckley, James Hurd and Michael Voss, who were, no one could pick whichever one they wanted out of those three. And then before that, Nat, I don't think there was too much dispute that it was Wayne Carey of most of the 90s.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that.